Hey everybody, my name is Aditya Bajaj. My pronouns are he and him. Today I'm going to be talking about organizational success with accessibility, and I'm really appreciative of your time, and I hope that from today's session you'll be able to take something and apply in your own organization as well. So without any further ado, let's get started. Before we get started though, I want to call out that I am sharing my specific journey within Microsoft on accessibility. I have been part of this division, or I'll refer to it as organization within Microsoft that has more than 1,000 employees. And I've been working on this team for more than 2 years. And Microsoft's journey in accessibility goes way beyond, decades before I joined the team. So that's just here for your reference. We will go and get started. About me, I am an accessibility advocate. I guess that's why I'm here. And also by title, I'm a senior program manager. I have been in this industry for more than 14 years, and I have done coding. I have literally cut PSDs, the Photoshop files, and created HTML, CSS, JavaScripts out of them. And I think that particularly has helped me a lot remain close to the websites. I have done website development, web applications, and then finally doing a lot of accessibility over the last couple of years. I was born in India and moved to Seattle about seven and a half years ago, and have been here since then. So just giving a little bit more context about my accessibility journey within my particular organization. I was hired in FY19 doing accessibility for just a little small team. They had a bunch of websites, and we managed I managed to help increase accessibility of those websites. And then we thought, why not apply the same rules and principles to broader teams? So we became partners with other teams and helped other teams as well to increase accessibility within their own teams, provided consultations and things like that. And in FY21, we stepped back and said, hey, we did approximately 30 people team in FY19, broadened that to 100 people in FY20. Why not apply that to across the organization within this? So in FY21, which is this year, we are building a foundation to scale accessibility program across the division. And in FY22 and onwards, I'm hoping that we'll be able to scale this program with self-serve model so that people can go to resources themselves and start tracking on their own compliance status. And today we are going to be talking specifically about that FY21, which is currently happening in my team right now. So it's very fresh, it's latest, and something that hopefully you'll be able to learn from. So looking back in FY20, when we were designing this whole program for FY21, we were looking back and seeing, hey, what is the problem? And the challenge was basically to embed accessibility within the culture in our day-to-day rhythm of business so that it is baked in instead of a bolt-on approach. We wanted people to think about accessibility. I think you have heard this a lot of times throughout these 2 days at this conference, that we want to build and bake accessibility in all the stages and not just put accessibility at the end of the project, for example. We know that at this time, we don't not need to know why we need to do it versus we are talking about how we can do it. So looking back again in my own organization for about 2 years, we saw a couple things, and based on that, we came up with this program itself. So the first issue is unavailable org level accessibility status. So even if the website teams and the social teams and all the respective teams were doing their own accessibility work so that the ultimate customer experience is accessible, but at the same time, all the teams that were contributing to it may not be thinking about accessibility. And that's why there was a lot of, a bolt-on approach and things like that. So we wanted to fix that. And the root cause for that particular issue is that there is no central compliance tracking or management within our own organization, within our own division. And the solution to that was simple, this program that we are running right now. The second issue was inaccurate asset level accessibility status. What that means is people thought that they knew accessibility. People thought they just did some search and maybe they were relying on somebody else to do accessibility and they thought they were all accessible. But when I actually ended up using their product just for double checking or experiencing that with a screen reader, uh, it was not accessible. And the reason for that was because there was a lack of awareness. People did not exactly know what exactly is accessibility. And the solution to that for this FY21 has been providing workshops and trainings so that people can learn from it. People can reuse whatever somebody else has done it. And in that way, when they're aware of accessibility, then they will know what exactly their accessibility status is, or at least they'll be closer to it. The third issue was accessibility not in general rhythm of business. People did not have, like we talked about, I mentioned that earlier, accessibility needed to be part of every single project, and it was not a day-to-day practice. So the root cause was that people did not know that they were accountable, that they own accessibility. In fact, some people actually told me, "Hey, you are my accessibility lead, then why should I worry about accessibility?" And accessibility is not something that only one person on the team will be able to do. In fact, even if that person wanted to, it's just not scalable. So the solution to that is self-attested accessibility. We want people to just self-attest whatever their accessibility is and and be accountable for it. A quick example I want to throw is, let's say that you are sending an email to your fellow colleagues, or your friends or family. You don't expect somebody else to fix your spellings, do you? Similarly, accessibility is something, if somebody with a disability is receiving that email, then it is as good as an email with the typos, for somebody who can see it. So just how I won't fix the spellings in your email, I won't fix accessibility for you either. I want you to do it because it's your responsibility. The fourth issue is unavailable deeper accessibility support. When people lacked awareness, they needed to know that they're accountable. They also needed a little bit more support. There is support across the organization, like the larger organization. However, within our team, we had resource bandwidth constraints and all that. So we needed to provide them a little bit more support. And the solution to that is basically through additional office hours and on-demand consultation as they would need. Our approach for FY21 really was based on two key principles and three focus areas. The key principles are accessibility is for everyone and by everyone. We just talked about that. Everyone has a role to play. It's not just one person's responsibility. The second one is self-attested model. We, like I said, I cannot have everybody's email tested for spelling. Similarly, I won't test their accessibility either. So I want them to self-attest that, hey, I am doing my accessibility and I am being responsible for it. But we do realize that they will need training and they will need guidance for it, because we just saw in the key challenges area where they needed some support basically to understand what exactly accessibility status is of their own assets. So the focus areas are three focus areas, which is the first one is compliance, in which we are hoping and have been working on increasing and tracking compliance of all the things that we are doing within our own little org. And not only just checking the box, but also testing with people with disabilities, especially the high priority, high visibility assets, so that, we are not just checking a color contrast and, all the other checks from compliance perspectives, but also making sure that the user experience by people with disabilities actually is usable. The second focus area is skilling, in which we are increasing in accessibility awareness and skill sets across the organization, in which we are really doing trainings and pointing them to different trainings across the organization or outside of organization, and just generally keeping them aware of things on accessibility. The third one is communications, in which we are providing them accessibility updates, program status as well, and the news on accessibility and so forth. So communications really is to keep people on, keep accessibility in their heads all the time. Like, hey, keep accessibility on mind. Just kind of, as we are building this culture and driving this culture change, we want them to keep this in mind. Moving on to the next one. So first and foremost, I think if you might have heard this on previous sessions as well, where getting management support is super, super important. You want to make sure that management embraces accessibility and this diversity and inclusion culture. Otherwise, it would just be a very hard journey. And our leadership has been really helpful and supportive of, accessibility within our organization. So here are a few slides which you can actually literally just take as is and share it with your management and say, hey, here are the reasons why we should be doing accessibility. And one of them is here, accessibility is a responsibility. I am pretty sure I'm not the first one you're hearing this from, but there are more than 1 billion people on the planet that live with some sort of disability, and many of them need assistive technology, but only 1 in 10 have access to the products that they need. And disability can affect any of us at any time, especially because disabilities can be permanent, where somebody's living with just one arm for the rest of their lives, temporary, such as a temporary arm injury, or a situational where you have baby in your hand, you're a new parent, you have baby on your hand, one hand, and you're using the other arm for using content or accessing content on a laptop or somewhere. Another example would be you're in a bus and you're traveling in a bus and you're holding the handrail with one hand, and another hand is you're using the phone or accessing content with the other hand. Another quick example, you're outside in the sun, it's sunny in Seattle right now. You are trying to access content on your phone, but sun is glaring at it, and that's when you have that situational vision impairment. And we also know that 2 times is the unemployment rate for people with disability than those without. So it's our responsibility to make sure that we are creating and adopting accessible technology that will help our fellow colleagues as well as our customers be more productive. Accessibility is also an opportunity. These are some stats from sources like Accenture Study, the Disability Inclusion Advantage, and Forbes article that was how millennials are reshaping what's important in corporate culture. So inclusive organizations actually outperform their peers, and they've seen 28% higher revenue, 2 times higher net income, and 30% better performance on economic profit margin. And Forbes, I believe, is also estimating that 75% of global force will choose to choose an employer that embraces diversity and inclusion in 2025. So here are some quick reasons on why we should be doing accessibility that you can share with your management as well. Here's a bigger one, actually. Inclusion drives innovation, or one of the biggest one, I guess. Inclusion drives innovation for everyone. These are four real examples that actually drove or benefited everybody when they were actually created for people with disability. The first one is bendy straws. These were created for patients in a hospital because they had limited mobility, but now restaurants and we all like convenience, and I believe accessibility does increase convenience for everybody. The second one is the can opener by Good OXO Grips, and this was actually created by a father and a son for their wife slash mom when she was having arthritis, and they wanted her to feel comfortable using devices. So this was actually created for her, and I actually have it myself in my kitchen, and I love using it. It's very convenient. The third one is the video captions. This is created for people with disabilities, especially the deafness, and everybody benefit. Like most people benefit from it, especially if there is a language barrier. I feel like I pay more attention to things if I'm watching a video with a caption. So I feel like it helps me keep the focus on the video itself and not get distracted with too much going on. The fourth one is assistive technology. This was created for people on wheelchair that had limited mobility, but this is being used by, like I'm 100% sure that you have a device right now that has this voice recognition technology. So here are your four reasons on how you can talk to your management about it. In general, solving for multiple things at the same time. So here is a summary. First of all, doing the right thing, protecting yourself from legal risks. I'm sure your organization will be interested in that. Avoiding brand perception costs. If you don't do things accessible, if things can happen on social media, and if you're building a brand reputation, you want to make sure that you are thinking about accessibility and including everybody in your experiences. Ultimately, as we saw in the last slide, accessibility increases usability for every single person. Now I will talk about those 3 focus areas that we have implemented in our own team. And the first one is the compliance. So here, what actions we took were started developing an org level tracking system, and I'll talk about that in just a second, and started reporting that on a quarterly basis. It's been 3 quarters and 2 reports have been out. So we have been still working on it. There's a lot of work going on all at the same time. Test assets with people with disability. I already mentioned this, but you don't want to just check a box and say, hey, we have done our check and we are compliant. In fact, one of the sessions earlier today I was watching, they had a very great example. It was a staircase, a very high, single line staircase, and you would just put a ramp on it and you would just say, hey, we have checked the box, we have a ramp on it, but people can really use it, is a big question. So you want to not only just check the box, but actually make sure it is usable. And the third one is support company related accessibility initiatives. You don't want to do your own silo work and forget anything that's happening across the company. So we are specifically are closely aligned with our accessibility within Microsoft, so that we are making sure that we are all walking the same steps. Now, here is the simple tracking system. The reason for it to be a simple tracking system is because people, in the end, for websites and all the assets that are being developed, they make sure that things are getting accessible and out, especially the websites and social media channels, for example. But we wanted to drive this culture change across the organization. And there are 1,000 people in the org. And how do I ask everybody to fill up an inventory sheet for me so that I can generate a scorecard? And I'll show you the scorecard in just a second. So what we decided to do is ask a simple question. Hey, do you have an accessibility review process in your day-to-day? So I'm not even asking if you're compliant. I'm just asking, hey, do you have an accessibility review process? And each of the teams were required to ask this question across their assets and team functions, so that we can create an inventory. And I'll show you that as well in a second. In this graph, what I'm sharing here is a hierarchy. For example, if you have an asset or a category of asset, we were asking this question across these different team functions. So for example, a messaging framework for that particular asset, a product SME providing the expertise for that particular asset, a designer, content writer, publisher, localization for just that particular asset. So we recorded whether they have an accessibility review process across each different functions, so that we can better understand where we need to fix or increase or help people understand what accessibility really is. This inventory actually gave us insights on where things were going well and where we needed to improve just to do things more efficiently overall. And here actually is a scorecard, literally the copy of the format that we use in our organization. I've just all this data is suggestive demo, but I'll walk you through each of these sections. So solution areas at the top is basically a filter. You have product 1, product 2, service 1, service 2, other. These are just simple buttons that filter the whole report. And then you have a drop down called people, and it can be selected up to 3 peoples within that hierarchy. So if you are a manager of a particular asset, you can select up to 2 people reporting to you within that drop down. The team function is another drop down that contains exactly what we just talked about: content, design, and so forth. The second portion, the second section of the scorecard actually is the data that I'm really interested in. So this is 300 distinct assets or categories. Let's say that this is what was reported. And across all these solution areas, because no filter has been applied right now, I know that I have approximately 300 categories or categories of assets or assets themselves. And then the question that we asked, accessibility process and rhythm of business. And people said yes, no, or in progress. So for 300 assets, we have 60% saying yes, 30% saying no, and 10% saying in progress. So we would go quickly to look into that 30% section and filter that by just 30% and see where we can go and who do we need to talk to, in other words. The third portion and the last one on the scorecard is accessibility process in the rhythm of business, ROB, by channels. And what channels really mean in this case is, website is a channel, and within social is a channel, blog is a channel, collateral, and so forth. So you want to make sure that accessibility is consistent across these different channels. And this is not representing one team. This is not representing just the web team. It's all the people that contribute to the web team's assets. So let's say that I'm publishing a website and I have a content PMM sending me content. If I have a designer from another team sending me design, all these people are contributing to this asset website. And that's how this website channel is. And this is what the information is. So in this case, 30% are saying for website that we have an accessibility in rhythm of business. This is all fake, by the way. This is not all real data. 50% are saying no, we don't have it, and 20% are saying in progress. And similarly, you can check it for social, blog, and collateral. In the next slide, I'll show you what you need to really capture if you are interested in doing something this for your own organization. So here is a sample example or a sample structure for the inventory that I called it for, or in other words, it's a database that would feed into that report that report I had created in Power BI. You could probably do that in Excel sheet or any other spreadsheet if you would like, but Power BI came really handy to me. So inventory structure example, I'll walk you through the header first of the table and then just give a couple example as we go. So first header is first column is the solution area, and it could be your product, one of the products, or any services or something else that you may have. And within that solution area, you may have list of assets or or categories of assets. And this would be in this case, it's a feature one. I'm just for demonstration. And then the third column, which is asset type or channel, we saw web, social, collateral, and in this case, it's a web. Channel is the web. The fourth is the theme function that we just talked about: design, content, publishing, etc. In this case, first example, design. And now I have, these four cells that's telling me currently I'm talking about design of the website of feature one within the product one. And the question was asked against this: do you have a mass, or do you have an accessibility review process within this particular combination? And then the teams would provide saying, yes, we do have it, or no, we don't have it, or yes, it's in progress. Similarly, they would provide me things like product one, feature one, web, content. In that case, I'll get, okay, design is accessible, but what about content within web? And again, stepping back, we are doing this so that every single person on the team do their part so that we can do accessibility at scale. It's not just one person in the end to fix everybody's problem. So we want everybody to participate in this, and that's exactly what this scorecard or this table structure is going to provide me. So the next column is accessibility process and rhythm of business. And like I think we covered that. The answer is yes. It could be no. It also could be in progress. And one more thing I want to call out is that one of the main communication piece I had in my own program management within the organization was that, hey, nobody will like shame you, or there's no punishment around if you're not having an accessibility, because we are making sure the ultimate experience is accessible. But here what we're trying to do is just increase accessibility so that at Microsoft we can create world-class accessible experiences. Compliance status was specifically for only the team functions which were at the end of the line. So for example, if a publishing team is there, we asked this question specifically to them, just that they need to tell us whether they are compliant or not, because not everybody, like design team cannot tell me, hey, I created this design and it's compliant at a particular grade. And then there is visibility, because we want to start with external facing assets first, and then we want to go internal facing assets then. And then the second one is, or the next one is the priority, so that you can fix things first on the more visible assets and then go down from there. And then the manager column will just give you who is managing that particular product or that particular theme function of that product. And the examples in this case are Elvis and Sassy, and they're really my dog names, at least two of them. So the focus area, next one is the skilling. And this is where we wanted to increase accessibility awareness within the team so that they know what disability types are, and all things around accessibility. In fact, things like, hey, we also have this resources hub at Microsoft and in our own team that they can go to. All of this kind of was part of that, or is part of that skilling focus area. People also have questions, and we needed them to be able to ask those questions. So we started doing bi-weekly office hours, then accessibility deep dives, not only in our own organization, but if somebody else is doing that, like for example, an all text training, or something else outside of Microsoft either, also we would just like point them to those sort of training so that they can increase their awareness. Accessibility resources hub, where they can find curated resources. There are so many resources across on the globe, so we wanted to bring them the most useful resources from internal as well as external websites. On-demand consultation, because not everybody can make it to your bi-weekly, the two every 2 weeks. So we created a ticket system where people can submit their request, and we can then resolve that request via a ticket system in a proper format. And then the last one is accessibility and action badge. This is basically not, and you taking the action badge and everything. That's not the case. It's basically for people that are starting to understand what accessibility is, or trying to learn what accessibility is. And we do have a link about this, and I use this as a metric across my own organization on how we are doing in terms of who is taking that badge. And this badge is recognized by public as well, like it's publicly recognizable, so anybody can take that badge, uh, especially for management and the PMs and all those non-technical people, to understand what really accessibility is at a foundation level. The third and the last is the focus area of the communications piece, where we have this amazing team, or we team, called accessibility advocates within our organization, and they are a super valuable resource and asset to me, and I'll talk about them in just a second. The second one is accessibility content in all hands or all team meetings. We made sure that each and every single team is at least seeing some accessibility content in their all team meetings, so that they are generating awareness, because we are talking about cultural change, and this will happen only when you try to send that information and message from various different channels, not just one website or one email. So we were trying to just partner with as many people as possible and reach out with this accessibility content. In this accessibility content, I basically talk about what accessibility is, what disability types are, and why it's important and things like that. And then share that badge training with them, and people get really excited. And so this has worked really well for us so far, and I think anybody can use that from here. Monthly program updates to management. Management has been super invested in our program, and so we wanted to also keep them updated with whatever the progress we were making in terms of the badges received or earned, and so forth. Plugging in accessibility content in various internal newsletters. So not only just the accessibility related newsletters, but also any other communications that we were sending out. We are trying hard to reach people through different channels and different assets internally. This actually is a very valuable asset to my own program, Accessibility Advocates We team. We currently have approximately 40 people representing each and every single, not each and every single, but most teams across the organization. My goal is that every single team within that organization has somebody to go to immediately, because they are part of their own team. I may sit too far away from them, but they know this person, and so they can just like quickly ask them a quick question. And if this person doesn't know that question, it's totally fine. They can either submit a ticket, join the office hours, or come to me directly. But advocates V team, basically, they're not the SMEs. They may not be the SMEs, but they are the evangelists. They are advocating for people with disability within their teams day to day, or plan discussions and execution. As an example, you as an advocate are part of this project, and somebody's discussing that project, and you can remind, hey, what about accessibility? And that way people have that. We're kind of like putting our guards everywhere, talking about accessibility. These folks are also building that bridge between me or our program and their own team, in case I need to send some information to them, or they have questions around accessibility or whatever they want to share. we all collaborate together on a bi-weekly basis and talk about accessibility issues and share back if there are any issues or learnings. We share that back, so we are not like working in a siloed way. We are also sharing and collaborating at the same time. They have been very helpful and generous to help create that inventory, because it needed everybody to go into the spreadsheet and fill in that information so that we can generate the scorecard. But the good news is that you need to do that once in a while. You update the initial inventory, and then you can generate the scorecard, and then you can decide what cadence you want to maintain. It can be quarterly, it can be monthly if it's too critical for you, or it can be 6 months, yearly, whatever works for you. Basically, they would go back and just update the status to, yes, we have changed our accessibility process, and now we have accessibility process, or no, things have changed, we don't have accessibility process anymore, but we need to fix that. So you can decide on however you want to do it, and then these folks will also bring any issues or concerns that their teams may be having. All right, so here is a summary for what you might want to take back, even in case if this was helpful, was that, first of all, get the management support. Without that, it's going to be really hard. Create a V team and people in that V team should be people that want to support, not required to support, because that's not going to be fun for them, and it might just not work out. So you want people that really want to help you create this. And then create inventory will be the part that advocates will be helping you, and then identify areas for improvement. Based on the inventory, based on the data you will receive in the inventory, it'll take time. Give them a lot of time. Don't expect Please don't expect them to like give you content within even a month, because they have their own responsibilities, and this is on top of it. So you want to give them enough time. Plan ahead, give them 3 months or so, and then start building that inventory. And whatever you're learning on the go, you can start helping those folks on as you learn. And then track compliance status of high priority assets to start with, and then incorporate additional priorities like P2s and P3s and internal assets. Internal P1 assets can also be equal priority than what's external, because if your employees, if your fellow colleagues are not able to use a tool because of their disability, then that's not going to be fun for any of you or anybody in general. So you want to make sure that those assets are also captured early on, and that that they're accessible and that people are able to use them. Provides me support. If you don't have somebody on your team that knows accessibility or in the organization, then you will need to hire somebody, but it will be worth the investment. Support will be needed if you want to go ahead and excel in your accessibility journey. Keep everybody in the loop via monthly newsletters, updates, because people have lots of priorities, things are changing, there's so much going on. You want to keep them in the loop and keep reminding them that, hey, we need to do accessibility for whatever we are doing. With that, that's all I have. Here are some resources. The first one is aka.ms/accessibility fundamentals. You will have this in the document that's attached to this page, I believe, down below. This is where you can track your badges, not track, but basically you can earn the badge for your own, and then you can ask your teammates to earn if you're interested. Accessibilityinsights.io is a tool that I use personally for quickly checking website issues. They're similar. This is actually similar to what WebIm provides, or X itself provides. But there is also a manual assessment where you can also generate a report and make sure that your testing is covered end to end. Then the last one is WCAG, wcagaccess.com/resources. And I've put some resources there for you. And I'm still working on it. And with that, I will hand it over back to Noah for questions.
Awesome. Aditya, thank you so much for your session. Super informative. We do have a couple of questions in the Q&A, so I'm going to just read straight from that. First question, did you face any large-scale pushback with implementing the self-attested model? And if so, what did you do to handle those objections?
Great question. Yes, this was part of it. Not everybody was on the same page. So yes, that's why you need to start with the management first, the leadership first, and then explain them the benefits that like I shared in the slides. Share them the benefits, not only that we are doing the right thing, but also we are complying, which is essential to the business. And then you can have innovations done and things like that when you're doing accessibility across the organization, not just one team. And then so the pushback, the way that I handled pushback was just giving them like why we are doing it, and never give up, never gave up. Just like keep asking them, hey, we need to do this. So yeah, that's how we handled it on our team.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that perseverance is a huge part of it, right?
Yeah, very, very huge.
Mm-hmm. Second question. So for your compliance and monitoring step, what was the blend of automated and manual testing that you used to feel good about the level of compliance and reporting?
Sure. So first of all, the things that I just shared is asking every single person to do their part for accessibility. So we did not ask every single person to provide that compliance report for or compliance grade or compliance status for their own individual work, because the website cannot be tested unless and until all things are put together. And then so that's why the publishing team, for example, or the production team or the development team would be responsible to report on compliance. So, so the compliance was done for that particular website alone, like for example, that particular asset, and it would be done for the using the fast pass, for example, on the accessibility insights, meaning the automated checks, as well as manual testing would be done by QAs. So the QAs, once the page is ready by the development team or the production team, then the QAs, the quality assurance and engineers, would then go through that page and make sure that the whole experience is accessible. Did I
Okay.
answer that question properly? I can't remember if I answered everything from it.
Well, no, I mean, I think so. I mean, the question in general was just like, what blend of automated and manual testing, did you find worked best? But I mean, if you have more to add, please.
I see. Yeah. The blend has been in the way that if you have something very critical, very if it has large visibility, if you have high traffic, you want to make sure that you are doing iteratively testing across the two sets, like the manual as well as the automated. But there are maybe cases that you have too many things to do at the same time, so you would start with the priority ones and do the full assessment, including manual and automated. And then as you fix those issues on the go, and then you would want to do the least priority ones later on in the stage. But you would want to make sure that everything is accessible, not just leaving something on fast pass or the automated testing alone, because we know that 30% accessibility is automated, roughly speaking, and 70% is manual. So you want to make sure that everything is accessible that way.
Sure. Question from Kelly. So for a company that does not yet have an accessibility program or team, what would you recommend be the first steps to take to build that out?
I love that question.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry, did I interrupt you?
No, there's like a second part, but let's get to that part first.
Yeah, I would download this presentation, go to that getting management support section slides, share with your leadership, and say, here are the reasons why we should be doing it. And it's not only benefiting people, but it's also benefiting the business. There is a reason. There are many reasons to do accessibility. So I would start there.
Yeah. No, yeah. And then the second part of the question was, I want to write a pitch or proposal for leadership, but I feel I need to include clear and specific action items to include in that, sort of like audit, hiring practices, things of that nature.
Mm-hmm.
But like you said, that's kind of laid out in the packet there. So I believe for this session page, yep, there is already a link for anybody here. There's a link to download the presentation and have access to all this information. I do not have any other Q&A in the chat. So if there's nothing else coming through into the Q&A, Aditya, thank you so much. This was a fantastic presentation. Really appreciate you bringing that here for us all. And I think with that, one last minute question.
Right.
So I'm going to put this here. Do you have any thoughts about embarking on an accessibility audit remediation project for both product, which is software in my case, as well as tremendous website content. So any thoughts or advice on, moving into an audit and remediation project for, software products, but also content heavy website stuff?
So
And then,
sorry, you have to repeat the question.
basically, the person's asking, they're about to embark on a big audit project, and they've got, on one hand, they've got their software product that needs to be audited and remediated, and then they've also got website that is very content heavy, and they're wondering, is divide and conquer better, work in parallel, focus on one first? Can you provide any advice?
Yeah, unfortunately, I feel like you might need additional resources if you want to do, depending upon the priority of the content, how accessible it is. I guess that's part of the audit. So yeah, it really depends upon the volume you're talking about. And if you do feel like you cannot handle it all together and both things are equally important, then you would want to hire additional resources to get that work done.
And follow, I feel like some of that prioritization you were talking about earlier, right? Identifying critical flows, high traffic areas, things like that. That makes sense. Awesome. Very cool. Okay, well, I think with that, we will wrap this session up. So thank you again, Aditya, and for those of you watching, and Rivka for our ASL translation. Thank you, everybody involved. Have a wonderful rest of your AXCON.
Thanks, everybody.